Hi, I'm Shane with business.Our. Today you're going to be taking a look at, I'm going to walk you through the installation on the Maxxair Fan Deluxe roof vent on our 2018 Nissan NV 2500. This is going to be designed to help circulate air inside an enclosed area. For instance, a lot of people are taking these vans and they're either converting them into their own campers because they can design them the way they want, or they're making a mobile business out of them. This is going to allow you to ventilate that inside air to make it more comfortable whether you're sleeping or running your business. Our cover is going to be a smoke cover, so it's going to reduce the amount of sunlight that's going to get in. Not only that, but you can notice it's a really streamlined design, so it sits pretty close to the roof of the vehicle. We're not sticking up real high like some of the other styles out there. It's going to be a really durable plastic, so it's going to hold up in all weather conditions. The cover is also going to be a rain cover, so it's not going to allow any water inside the vehicle when it's raining, whether it's open or closed. It's going to have a full screen to keep any bugs from gaining access into the vehicle when in use. Also, on the bottom right down in here, we're going to have a rubber seal that runs all the way around this inside housing, or where this housing comes down on top of this base to keep any water from getting inside down there. So it's really sealed really well. This is what our roof vent's going to look like inside of our vehicle. Let's go over some of the features. What you start with is this is going to be a manual open and close. So we just turn this knob to open and close it. Now again, this can be used, this fan can be used, whether that vent is closed or open. It has a full screen on it, so it's not going to allow any bugs or any water inside. Then our lid is also going to have a push to lock feature, so when we're traveling down the highway, we have it closed, we can push it and it'll keep that lid from coming open. Now if we come right down here to this back corner, this is going to be our function pad. We have our on and off. We have our input, which will change the direction of our fan, because we can either use it as a ceiling fan or we can vent air out or pull hot air out. We have temperature settings, so we can set a temperature and it will automatically turn off and on by itself to circulate air, get it to that temperature. This is going to be our speed control. We're going to have 10 different speeds to get our fan up to full speed when we need it, or really down low. Now, one thing I want to mention, this fan is very quiet, so whatever you may be using your van for, whether it's a camper, it's not going to disturb you even at full speed. So let's go ahead and turn it on and see what it sounds like. Keep in mind I do have a microphone on, so it may sound a little bit louder, but it is not loud at all. Go ahead and turn it up. We're at full speed. Now what we'll do is I'm going to hit the in and out, and you'll watch the fan stop, and it's going to switch directions. Now what it's doing is pulling air out. We can use this as a ceiling fan option, where we can have our lid closed and still run our fan. Spot right here, this is going to be our temperature gauge, or our thermostat for the inside. One thing I do want to mention, with this fan, you have the auto setting for the temperature. It's only going to be able to be set at 78 degrees. It doesn't allow you any adjustability. But that being said, when you turn that on auto, the fan is going to turn on and off by itself to adjust that air to get it to 78 degrees. And as far as our screen goes, unlike some of the others, this one's very easy to take off. To remove it, you simply turn these tabs to the side, and it slides right off. It allows you to, maybe clean off your blades on your fan, clean off your screen a little bit, and you can put it right back in place. Really easy access for any maintenance that you will need to do. Now, if you're looking for a type of fan that may have more adjustability for air temperature, or maybe has a remote control, we do have those here at business.Our. There are other types of fans available. Again, this one has a rain guard on it, but there are other types that don't have the rain guard, but they have a rain sensor. So if it detects any moisture, that vent is automatically going to close by itself. You don't have to mess with it. Now, as far as the installation goes on this, it's really not a difficult installation. It's pretty simple and straightforward. It is going to require a 14 by 14 hole to be cut in the roof. Also, it's going to require roof vent insulation kit. That's going to come with butyl tape, it's going to come with your screws, and it's also going to come with some self-leveling sealer for the top so it doesn't allow water to get inside the vehicle. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let's show you how to get it installed. We're going to start by coming inside the van, and we need to measure between our ribs and make sure we have at least 14 inches in between them, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to actually cut under the rib, because that's our roof support. So you can see here, this rib is a little bit short. This is originally where our customer wanted it, but we're actually only at 13 3/4. So in order to get that 14 by 14, we have to cut in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to move it back one and measure here. So right here we're at 14 3/4, so that's going to give us enough room. We won't have to cut into either one of the ribs, and we'll have just enough space inside here that the ribs will support it. So I did have to move this light. This light was actually flipped over here. I just flipped it around. Our customer actually had it covered, so I don't think they're going to be using it, but I don't want it just hanging. So just make sure wherever you're putting it, you get any items like that out of your way. Once you've determined where you're going to put your vent, there's a couple of things you're going to need. You need some glue on board. It'll look like this, very thin, for a template. You're going to need 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch piece of plywood, about this size. I'm going to use 3/4 inch because where our ribs are, normally we would do an 18 by 18 square and have that frame come all the way out around the 14 by 14 square, except between the two ribs, we're only going to be able to come out 1/4 inch. So when I bolt down from the top, I don't want to come all the way down through my my vent shroud on the bottom. So I'm going to do 3/4 inch. That'll give my screws plenty of wood to bite into. Then, a level. You don't necessarily need the level, but at least a straight line. Speed square will work good. Get a couple of bolts, small ones, nut and bolt, and 2 flat washers. Painter's tape and some wood glue. Our first step is to make the template, and that's out of the Luan board. So what you're going to do, and I've already got one made here, but you're going to take your Luan board and you can go from an edge and you're going to do a 14 by 14 square. Make sure that your board is square. Measure across and then measure corner to corner just to make sure you get the same measurement. Once you do your 14 by 14 square, you're going to put a mark in each corner that is 7/16 in from each line. You're going to do 4 of those. And you're going to find the center and you're going to drill a hole in the center. You want to make sure that your bolt is going to fit through there. What we're going to do is this is going to be our template for the inside to make sure that our fan is centered, or is going to be centered between our ribs. This bolt's going to go through like this, and we're going to actually, it's going to be bolted to the roof pretty much. And then we'll move to the next one. We'll actually put one in here, and then we'll drill out those 4 holes. That's going to give us our 4 corners to cut out this square on our roof. So now what we'll do is we'll take this, we're going to set it in between our ribs, we're going to drill this center hole all the way up through the roof. We're going to hold it up on the inside. We're going to make sure we're even between our ribs and centered wherever we're wanting it. And we're going to take our 9/32 drill bit, make a mark right here. Now take your bolt with your washer, drop it down through the roof, put on our next washer and our nut. A little tip, if your board seems to move one way or the other, if you make this hole just a little bit bigger, because this whole square is going to end up getting cut out, make the board hole a little bit bigger. You'll be able to shift it back and forth one way or the other to get you even. So now what I'm going to do is from here, I'm actually going to take a smaller drill bit. I'm going to drill a pilot hole right in the center, and then I'll open that up, and then I'm going to drop one more bolt down through one of the corners to draw out the rest of them. That'll keep my board from moving. Now we'll drop another bolt with my washers down through that one. Once we get our 4 holes drilled, we're going to take our tin plate down and we're going to move it up to the roof. We're going to put our bolts back in place, go ahead and tighten it down, and then we'll move to the next step of taping it off so we get our 14 by 14 square. We're going to tape it right along our edges. Right up next to the board. You're going to make sure you don't stand on your roof because this the metal is pretty thin and you don't want to bend it or fall through it. Once you get your tape on, you're going to move your tin plate. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open these holes up to where just where they're touching my tape in each corner, and that's going to be my 14 by 14 square. I'm going to use a step bit. You can use a bigger drill bit if you want. It's already there. I'm going to take a jigsaw, metal cutting blade. I'm going to cut right on the inside of my tape. So now what I'm going to do, every time I cut a line, I'm going to take tape and I'm going to go from the panel over to the side. That way when I get to the last one, this doesn't just fall down inside. And then we're just going to work our way around until we get our square cut out. And we can take our piece that we cut off and pull it out. There's our hole for our vent. Now I'm going to take a small file. I'm just going to go around this edge and knock off some of the burrs if there are any. Now I'm going to take some clear coat. I'm going to cover up this bare metal here. Next we need to make some shims so that when we screw our top down, it's screwing into something. This is going to be our top piece that we're actually going to be screwing down to our roof. And our holes, you can see they kind of come out inside these ribs. So what we're going to do, I take the inside piece and look like this, and rather than cut it to fit up inside of there, I'm going to make shims for that. That way my top piece has something to screw into, not just the sheet metal. So because that gap's so big, 3/4 inch plywood, we're going to cut 2 pieces for each side here that are 14.5 inches by 1 3/8 inches. Then your Luan board, you're going to cut it, it's going to be 13 inches by 1. And what the Luan board is going to do, I'll give you an example here, is actually going to fit in this gap to make this flat. So what we're doing is we're going to glue our pieces together, and it's going to sit just like this. And I haven't cut this Luan yet, but you can see what I'm trying to do here, and we'll have that on both sides. When you get your Luan cut, test fit it, make sure it's going to fit in there. We're actually going to be gluing all of our pieces together before we stick them up here. If you glue it together without measuring or testing it out, what might happen is your Luan board might be over and it may not seal against there. So what I suggest is taking one of these, you're going to throw it up like this, and you're going to mark right at that inside edge. Pull it down. You know we have to glue this in between those 2 lines, and we'll glue our other 2 pieces together. Put a clamp on them, hold them together, let them dry for a couple minutes before we install them. Now you want to take your base. This is the base to your fan. It's going to go on the outside. It's going to go just like this. And we're going to clamp it to the roof. You want to make sure you don't clamp it real hard. We just want it so it's not going to move because we're going to be drilling the holes for our bolts. Now, there's a couple steps here. From the inside, you can either use your framing that you made or just use a piece of wood and put it in there to hold it in place. Now we have corrugation that we need to fill on the outside. So our Luan board that we have, we're going to use it to fill this gap. So what I did is I cut a piece 5 1/4, and I slid it in like this. and then marked it. Now I'm going to cut this edge off so that's even with that. And I made 4 of those. So we'll go ahead and cut these off, get our shims ready, and then we can start drilling our holes in our roof. Now with our shims cut, our base is in place. We're going to take a 13/64 drill bit, and we're going to drill our holes around the outside. We want to make sure that this is not going to move. And we just want to go through the metal. So if you have your frame in there, make sure you're not going all the way through the frame. This edge right here, we don't have a wood base that's going to be under it. It's going to go right into the beam for the roof support. So I'm actually not going to drill that hole. I'm going to use self-tapping screws in here, on here and here. So all I'm going to be doing is drilling these 2 sides right here that are going down into my wood. Now we can remove our clamps. We'll go ahead and remove the base here. Like that. Pull up our tape. So you can see what I'm doing now. You're going to need a 3-foot, or actually two 3-foot by 1/2 inch aluminum strips like this. If you can find them in 3/4 inch wide, I would say those would probably be better. It's going to give you a little bit more room for your holes. The reason you need this is when we screw down this to our roof, this plastic frame, we don't want it to crack, and it could potentially crack over time because of where it is. So the strips, what they're going to do is they're going to disperse the downward pressure of each screw head. So all we're doing is we're matching them up with the holes. You can use tin snips. It's real easy to cut. Let's take a pin and slide it in like this. Take a piece of wood, same drill bit you used on the roof for your 3 holes on each side, and you're going to drill the holes through the aluminum strips. Just like that. And there's your metal frame. Doesn't matter what it really looks like, it's all going to be covered up with self-leveling sealer. We just want this so we don't crack this base when we screw it down. Next we're going to take our butyl tape. Typically what we would do is we would take this flange here, or this base, and we'd stick it on this edge. However, we have shims that are going in here, so our butyl tape's going to have to go on the bottom of the shims. We're going to have to get butyl tape on top, this top edge here. So instead of putting it on here first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on here. I can put my shims on the top, put this on top, and I'll have the butyl tape in every place other than the top of my shims. Set this idea, make sure my tape's in the right place. So what I'm looking for is to make sure that the butyl tape is covering my holes, my screw holes. Now I can take my shims and set them in place. I'm going to take an extra piece of butyl tape. I'm going to stick it right here in the center. Even though when I screw down, it's going to smash this. This, I'm afraid, is not going to be closed enough. I just want to make sure I'm not going to get any leaks. Just precautionary. I'm going to go ahead and put an extra piece in here. So now what I'm going to do, because my center is just a little bit higher, I'm going to go ahead and put another piece here. Instead of putting it on top of this, I'm going to actually put it on this edge. So if I didn't mention it before, you want to make sure that these tabs are going to the outside, not front or back. Because when you put your vent on top, it actually screws into the sides of it. So just make sure when you're doing that, you put it in like this, not like this. So now what I'm going to do is this edge and this edge, since it's just going into metal, I'm going to go ahead and put these in to hold my top in place before I put my wood bracing on these sides. Take some self-tapping screws. I'm going to make sure that you put your metal strip in there. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. We'll clamp our frame up here. We don't want it so tight that we crack that flange, but want this to hold in place. We'll put one on each side. Clamps off. Then we can cut our excess butyl tape off. And you don't actually have to touch the roof with the knife. All you gotta do is score this stuff and it will pretty much tear off. Now we're gonna set our vent in place. We're gonna make sure that the outside flange goes over top of that bottom ring. And we're gonna line up the two holes in each side with the two holes in the bottom. And make sure that your hinge, or you can see how it's leaning up because it opens this way. Make sure the hinge side is going towards the front. Side that opens is going to the back. You don't want that side to the front because you don't want wind to catch it. Now you're going to get some shorter Phillips head screws. They're going to be a little bit fatter than the other ones. There's only going to be 4 of them. Those are the 4 that go inside this set, the edges here. Now from inside, we're going to take our shroud. We're going to have to cut this piece to fit because it's not a normal install. So what we need to do is figure out the distance between here and this edge. I'm going to give myself a little extra space, so I'm going to cut it at 2 3/4. That way I've got plenty of room that this will meet here. I'm going to measure 2 3/4. Give myself a couple marks. Like that. We're going to do that all the way around. I'm going to take a Dremel tool with a plastic cutting blade and cut that out. If you don't have a Dremel tool, you can use a utility knife. It'll work just as well. Now I'll go back, clean this up. If some of it won't come off, take a knife, just run it like this right along the edge. I'm going to take my wiring, because we need to hook up to a 12-volt circuit. Probably going to run to the front of the vehicle. So I need to make sure that this is running whichever direction I'm going to go. Now, take this. Test it. Make sure it's fit in there. Get my wires coming out right there. Just like that. And I can run a screw here, screw on this side. That'll hold that in place. We got to run power to it and put our self-leveler on the top. Now I'm going to go ahead and install my ground wire. I'm just going to take a self-tapper and I'm going to put it right here. As long as we're on metal, we'll be all right. To the length, strip it. I'll add on our ring terminal. I'll take a self-tapping screw. Just like that. Now for my power wire. There's different ways to do this. What you want to do is run it to a positive power source. You can extend it, run it straight through a battery. You can run it to like a light like this. Keep in mind some of these lights are timed, so they're going to shut off. You may have to have your key in the on position if you're wanting to use the fan. This customer is actually going to have a mobile grooming company for animals. So they have a converter in the back that's going to power the pumps and everything for the vacuums and to drain the water and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this wire back to that so that whenever she is parked somewhere, she can use that converter to power everything. And we're going to test out our fan, make sure it's working, Once we know it's working, we can start putting our insulation back on, and we can put our self-leveling sealant on the top. So we got power. Now we know it's working. We can finish up our install. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take some extreme self-leveling sealant, white, and what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way up against the edge. We're going to cover all of this. We want it to come down over the top. We're going to do this all the way around the edges. We want to make sure we have good coverage. You're going to make sure you let that self-leveler sit for at least 24 to 48 hours. You want to make sure you got a good hold on the roof of the vehicle. You don't want any water to get inside. Again, I'm Shane with eTrailer.com. I hope this video has helped you whether you're still deciding or installing the Maxxair Fan Deluxe roof vent on your 2018 Nissan NV 2500.